next one is people can only do one thing. We know we've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, only play the sax.
Yeah, and people are actually much more resourceful than we would ever think.
Yeah. You mean play the sax and do accounts?
I can.
That's amazing.
And
at the same time.
And the funny thing is, that's the most popular model in the world.
Yes. The next rule, unwritten rule that everybody assumes is true, is focus on what you're best at.
Yeah.
So just play the sax, that's all you do. Mm-hmm. Don't do anything else, don't think about anything else.
And that's something we didn't touch on earlier when we talked about specialisation. And we assume specialisation, you mentioned the jack of all trades, and the 18th century quotation that's derived from
is not jack of all trades, master of none, is it?
It's master of one.
Yes.
So in other words, you play all the instruments in the orchestra, but you're best at the violin. But it means to say that when you play the violin, you can play it in context with everyone else who's playing all the other instruments because you have an intimate knowledge about it.
So it's like being T-shaped, that classic thing of be really good at one thing, but also be pretty good at a load of other things as well.
So if you look at something like sport, you take the world of tennis, you play with your mates down the park, and if you win because perhaps you've got a cracking forehand. Now, if you play tennis for the county, you'll win if you've got a very good game. Mm. But if you've got a weak backhand, that's who it's
going to be a problem
because your opponent's going to just exploit your backhand. But if you want to be internationally good, your whole game's got to be good. So the thing to think about in sport is always working on their weaknesses. That's what coaching's all about.
Yeah.
And at work, we say, no, don't worry about your weakness. You just sit in this little box here, your cubicle, and you just add these numbers together every day.
And just go and do what your strength is. And forget your weakness.
Yeah.
So you're bad at this, so somebody else will do that for you.
Now, and we imagine if you daisy chain all these strengths together, we get an overall strength, but we don't. We get enormous inefficiencies and losses.
Yeah.
But if nothing changes, if you've got a high degree of stability, you can make that work, and labour's cheap enough.
Yeah.
And that's why that hierarchical 18th century model, 19th century model is still running fine in China.
Yeah.
It works well there. And in other developing countries where those criteria are still met. In the knowledge economy, it's like driving a car. It doesn't make sense to divide it.
No. So in your model, if you're driving a car and you're just quite bad at steering, rather than get somebody else to steer, you would say, no, we're going to teach you to get better at steering.
You coach them.
And in your fractal factory, where everyone does everything, if somebody's not very good at selling or whatever, they just need to work on that and be coached and become good enough. They don't have to be world beating.
No.
They've just got to not have it as a terrible weakness.
Yeah. Good enough.
Good enough. Yeah. So we don't expect people to excel in everything, but inevitably their personalities will lead them to excel in something.
Yes.
You're probably a better saxophone player than you are a drummer.
Definitely.
That's your personality.
But I could still do a bit of drumming and it would still be all right.
Good enough.
Yeah.